Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am hard to kill. And before I introduce my guest, I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friend Preston Poulter, who runs Pocket Jack Comics, who has books like Palace of the Golden Princess and White Lily. And you can find his books at pocketjackcomics.com. And he has a Kickstarter right now going on. So please feel free to check out that Kickstarter. I do not think you'll be disappointed because Palace of the Golden Princess is a beautifully illustrated book. And it is just a fun story to read. It's been out for a while, and so you can read it, and he's always got awesome covers. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator Jorge Medina. So welcome to the show.
How's it going, Andrew? Man, thank you for having me on. I'm happy to be back.
I'm happy. I'm happy you're here. Obviously, you got a lot going on. You got the Shameless Plug on the Kickstarter right now. And we're going to get into that. But I figured I would let you quickly introduce who you are, because there's people who know who you are. There's people who don't know who you are. And you've been doing comics for 5-6 years now, at minimum 5-6 years, potentially more. But,
Yeah. My name is Jorge Medina. I started doing actually indie comics officially back in 2003, bro. It's been a while. And recently I've had a nice surge in creativity, and so I created the Shameless Plug I created about 4 years ago, and I've been working on that. But prior to that, I have a book called Rust 5377 and The Adventures of Wonder Duck, which is what I was here for. I believe the last time I was here for a Kickstarter that I was doing for that. I'm a writer, creator. I do a podcast called Catch the Craze. I have my own channel called Get Your Meds, and I do some lettering as well. So if anybody's interested in doing or needs a letterer, let me know. Reach out to me. That's my Instagram there on the screen, and check out my GetYourMeds.com website.
Yeah, so obviously I want to get into the Kickstarter because you're doing the Shameless Plug, which I think this is the first Kickstarter for that book.
Yes.
So I don't think it was on Kickstarter before. If it was, my bad, everybody. But what is the basic concept of it? Because again, people have seen it already on Kickstarter, and people are going to be seeing this interview for the first time. So what's the basic concept of it before we really get into it a little bit?
Yeah, it's basically a buddy comedy between a boy and his imagination, and it's almost like In and Out meets E.T., where a little boy just trying to fit in. When we're little and we go into a new situation, whether it's a new school or new neighborhood or whatever, you don't necessarily fit in. You don't know what the crowd is like. So this little boy named Joaquin is going through the situation, and so to cope with it, he creates his imaginary friend named Pana, who happens to be a plug, and he's going to teach him that sometimes to fit in, you just got to be who you are, and you're going to be fine. It's going to work itself out, and that's what the story is about. Again, created it about 4 years ago. I was sitting in my car, and I saw this guy, this plug, and I was like, dude, what if you put a face on that thing? Like, what would that look like? Like, that would be kind of cool character, and the story just kind of went from there, man.
So let's talk about this a little bit, because obviously this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is my interpretation of it. And hopefully I'm not off base, because it's going to be really bad if I am. But it's kind of an all-age comic book, meaning that there's not going to be anything inappropriate in this. It's meant for all ages. It's kind of a kid-friendly, family-friendly book. And so what is that like to create? Because I'm not saying Wonder Duck isn't kid-friendly, but it's a little bit more, I think, for not like a 5-year-old, if that makes sense. Like I feel comfortable giving my niece this book. Like,
I
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I listen, and I said this a lot, even when I'm at conventions and I speak to parents. I always like to give my books an age group, right? It happens in everything we do. You go to the movies, you got a PG-13, you got a rated R, you got a rated G for general. You buy whether you buy like collectibles and stuff like that, action figures, ages 7 and under or 7 plus or whatever. There's always an age group to it. So yeah, I agree with you. My comics, while they're family friendly, I will call them, they're not necessarily all ages, right? Because to your point, Wonder Duck, while it is a family friendly book, I usually tell people that's a 10 plus book, right? And the reason why I say it is because inside the book, there may not because of what happens inside the book, but because of how many words there are on a page. Sometimes a 9 or a 7-year-old doesn't want to read that many words. Hey, Ma, I don't want to read this. So that's why I say it's 10 plus. It's not necessarily for the content, but it is for like just the amount of words within the page. This particular book, believe it or not, is for young adults. It's not for kids. It's for young adults. And the reason for that is because it deals with themes that I don't want parents having to explain to their 10-year-old while they're reading the book. I want people to, when they pick up a book, I want you to just enjoy the book. I don't want your kid asking you a million questions. Hey, why did they say that? What does that mean? You know what I mean? And so because the book deals with fitting in and stuff like that, there is a bully in the book that's pretty savage with one of the characters in the name calling, right? And so I didn't want, kids to wonder why he's calling that person that. You know what I mean? Obviously, parents are going to be, explaining things to their kids, but I just want you guys to enjoy it. So that's why I gave it a young adult rating on it. And so that's where it is.
So this is interesting, right? Because I looked at the Kickstarter and I had a very different view on this. This is going to sound messed up, and I have no problem, and I'll take the L on it. But I looked at the art. I said, "Oh, this seems way more kid friendly. It seems more bubbly, more anime like." And I'm like, "Great, this is kind of the thing that I would want to give my 3-4-year-old niece, right?" And so this is out of left field a little bit, but for me. But I find it interesting, right? Because we have interpretation of art, right? And I have an idea, and maybe it's my bias, maybe it's how I just look at it,
Sure.
and maybe because I'm an anime kid. But I find that so interesting because I automatically took the assumption, man, this is like meant for a 5-year-old, because a 5-year-old's moving to a new school, and this is the book that's going to become the 5-year-old's companion, and it's completely the opposite. Like,
yeah, right. Well, so
I find it so fascinating. So I'm so curious, because it's like a mental screw with me.
Okay, so when you look at the pages in the Kickstarter, you scroll through them. The ones that I put up there, there's a kid coming into school, whatever, and you see there's like a scene, typical scene of like a young kid going into like a cafeteria, right? You don't know who to sit next to, whatever, and then a kid comes over, kicks the chair out of some other kid's hand, and it looks like kind of fun, goofy kind of stuff, but. See, my thing with that kind of stuff is that while that looks innocent, to a certain extent, it's what's being said to the kid that I felt like maybe somebody who was, like you said, a 5-year-old may not understand why he's being called that. Let me be specific. So when I was a kid, I'm an immigrant kid. I came from Ecuador. I was 7 years old, and I came here was in the 80s, 84. And at that time in New York, if you were Hispanic, you were either from Mexico or you were from Puerto Rico. There were no other, amongst kids anyway, like kids my age, 7, 8-year-old, you were either Mexican or Puerto Rican. And so for years, kids just, whether it's like a bully in the school, they would call me Mexico or Mira. That was the whole thing. So I feel like things like that are hard for a young kid to understand. Why is this kid being called that when he isn't that? Or it's just something that I think you would need to explain to somebody. So that's why I gave it that rating. The artwork is very cartoony, and I love that kind of art. I you know what I mean? Like that's Wonder Dog is the same way, but that theme is more grown up. I think it still works for a younger audience, but with an explanation by the parent. It's almost like going to a PG movie, parental guidance suggested movie. You know what I mean? Versus going into a G-rated movie where it's just cartoons and nothing else goes on. You know what I mean?
No, I find it fascinating, but I do want to dive into this a little bit more because obviously, I mean, you're dealing with themes in here that is a kid coping with coming into a new environment, and he's coming in and he's different. And, it's, I guess, this kid's, Joaquin's journey, for lack of a better word, of adjusting. I mean, I think that's the book, right? And then it's kind of just dealing with culture and other stuff and figuring it out and coping mechanisms, for lack of a better word here. So what is that like? Because that is interesting of its own right as well, even to touch on that, because that could go really wrong if you're not a writer. It could go really wrong, and there's nowhere to hide. there's nowhere to hide if
Yeah.
it's rough
Right.
and you
Right.
mess up. So like, what is that for you as a writer? Because you got to nail it. Because if you
Yeah.
don't, nowhere to hide.
Yeah. So people always say, write what you know, right? And I believe in write your experiences. And that kind of makes it easier for other people who maybe don't know what you know to understand that experience. And so when I was writing this book, it was about writing my experience as a kid and how I felt at that time. So it was easy to kind of like dig into something, dig into that kind of research to help me with what you're talking about, not get lost and possibly write something that's completely wrong or completely way off. And the other thing is I also hired an editor to help me work through what I had written on the page. And her name is L.A. Cunningham. Big shout out to her. She helped me with making sure that, hey, this is making sense. I get it. I'm understanding this. Yeah, that I know that this is what you were trying to say. Cool. Were you trying to do this here? Perfect. It worked. So I think when creating and when writing anything, I think having somebody else come in, an editor or people have beta readers, right? That come in and can read some of your stuff to help you kind of like navigate through some of the mistakes, the plot holes, or even just the bad storytelling that you could possibly get into because you get lost in your own story.
So I want to touch upon this because I think this is interesting, right? You've read books and I've read books, and we're not going to name people. We're not going to be that today. We all know, we all have 3 or 4 people off the top of our head here, but we know people said that book needed an editor.
Mm.
You pick up a book off of Kickstarter and you're like, great concept, great idea, really interesting, like where it was going, but they needed an editor
Yeah.
to steer that and get rid of the excess or make the excess pop off more or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. But what is that like to make that decision? Because I think it is a skill set to say, I need an editor and I need another set of eyes, and you need a professional editor and you need to actually hire help. You can't have your wife be looking at your book.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
offense to anybody's wife or your
No,
husband,
you're right.
but
You're right.
they're not an unbiased opinion.
That's what it is.
And it's not your spouse loves you and they might lie to you or they may not be the best person to
Right.
do it. So what is that like? Because I think it's a real, I guess, benefit to know saying I need an editor for this book. I
Yeah.
don't know if you need an editor for Wonder Duck because Wonder Duck is its own thing and it's like you got a superhero duck.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't write a superhero duck. I mean, God help. I'm just gonna call it out. But
Yeah.
all jokes aside, I mean,
um,
what is that like? Because I think there is something to be said about that.
I think you have to be honest with yourself, right? I think that part of that, part of asking for that help in a way is to understand that you don't know everything you think you know about your story. To the point, and in a sense that you can get easily not confused but lost in what you're trying to say. And so I think you have to be willing to say, all right, maybe I need some help with this. But the other side of that too is picking the right person to help you with. And like to your point, it can't be somebody that loves you because they're going to say, oh, this is great, this is really good, I enjoyed it, you know what I mean, just because they don't want to hurt your feelings. It's got to be somebody who knows what they're doing and isn't trying to rewrite your story, because I think that's important too. Sometimes you get an editor who would have written it that way, and so they want you to write it the way they would have written it. You know, you have to find an editor who understands what you're trying to say, and it's just trying to make it clear. They're looking for clarity rather than a complete change. So looking for an artist, man, I mean, looking for an editor, dude, like it was something that I knew I needed to do for this kind of story because I was being honest with myself as far as like I I need somebody to make sure that this is flowing the right way, the pace is right, and all these things. And so, finding that person, when I went looking for that person, I came across L.A. Cunningham, who was also a writer. And, I had a good rapport with her, and I was like, you know what, can you help me out with this? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. And, we started working together.
Again, this is not my area of expertise. So, I mean, but I've hired I can't speak today. I'm sorry. I've hired editors on my podcast to help cut up interview stuff, And I interviewed 2 or 3 people, and I actually made them do like a 15-minute sample because everybody will cut something up differently.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really, really important when back, 3, 4, 5 years ago, because somebody might leave a pause in there. They might have a more loose style, a more tight style,
Yeah.
and sometimes somebody cuts something off that shouldn't be cut off.
Yeah.
So it's a really complicated thing with creation.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know about comics, but I do want to dive more into to this because I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in your campaign that's interesting too.
Thanks, man.
A 40-page book, from my understanding.
Yes.
And so, what's that like? Because that's a whole different ballgame too. And I mean, you got to be competitive on page count right now. Every time, I mean, you got to tell a whole story. I think this is the first chapter,
Yeah.
and what's going to be eventually a graphic novel.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, you want to give value, but you don't want to drag the thing on, and you don't want to bankrupt yourself either in the process. So, like, how do you balance all that? Because when you do 40 pages, it does cost more, but it's also you're telling a story, but also there is something to be said about giving your readers 40 pages versus 24, 28, 32. So what is that like for you? Because I think it's interesting when people do that.
The book was written as a 140-page graphic novel, like you mentioned, right? So it's written in 5 chapters, 5 acts. And the first act, which is the first 40 pages, pretty much gives you you enter into the world, and this gives you the characters, this gives you what the character is going to be dealing with, and it introduces you to a lot of the characters that you're going to be seeing throughout the story, and the heart of the story kind of like is in these first 40 pages. So breaking it up the way I did, which is 40 pages, I thought about that. I thought about like a lot of what you're talking about, right? You got to think about the cost of printing these things. I thought that a 40-page book, I can still afford to do that, asking for what I was asking for, and not bankrupt myself. I mean, the book. Listen, right at this point, we're 90 pages into the book. I've already that's already done. 90 pages are already complete. We're working on the last 50 pages. We're working on the last 50 pages. So the book will be out completely next year. The Kickstarter, I don't do Kickstarters for every chapter. I can't do like 30 days of this stuff every like 2-3 months would kill me, bro. It would freaking drive me insane.
Why do you think I ran a Kickstarter and it was hell and I don't want to go back? There's 2 reasons why.
Yeah,
I don't feel comfortable begging people for money. I don't like people for money. I'll call it what it is, right? I understand that people are going to get upset with me. And then secondly, it is so exhausting to promote over and over and over again and beg people, you got a spot on your show. Can you help me out? Here's money. Here's my project. Did you see my project? Hey, did you see my project? Did you go to your neighbor? Hey, you see my project? How's the kid? My project's on Kickstarter. Like
for 30 days. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I decided that I was going to do the first 40 pages on Kickstarter, and then the full graphic novel will be available on my website. And what I'm doing with this Kickstarter is that every 10 backers, I'm spinning a wheel for people to win a chance to win that graphic novel for free. So if every time I reach a 10 backer goal, I will send you guys, all physical backers, you get one of these little things. It's almost like a Willy Wonka thing, right? Where like you get this in your package. And then next year, when I start going to the conventions, and it would be probably in the spring and summer, when you find me at whatever convention I'm at, just give me this back or show me you have this, and I will give you a graphic novel for free. I'm not even charging you for the graphic novel. You want it, it's yours. So that's the incentive for the pledges to come in. But yeah, no, man, I decided just to do the first 40 pages, one Kickstarter, and we're done. It's not coming back to Kickstarter.
Let's talk about this too, because
yeah,
I think I don't know how you feel about business, but I'm committed to my eBay stuff that I do. I'm committed to doing this show, and there gets a point where I'm all in on cards one way or the other. If I drop, $500 on a card, I'm all in on that thing. Win, lose, shine, whatever it comes out, it's going to be. So I think there gets a point where you have to be committed and you're now in it, and the cost at that point doesn't matter. I'm not saying you shouldn't be aware of it,
Yeah.
but it seems like you're all in on this book, regardless of the cost today or tomorrow.
Correct. Yeah.
So the Kickstarter, if you raise $1,500 or you raise 10,000, it doesn't change the fact that you're all in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a complicated issue though in campaigns right now, because I don't know when people are all in on things, because sometimes you get the sense that they are or they're not, and it's
Right.
very interesting because I don't know how you cannot be all in on a 5 series thing, but a lot of people go issue by issue and see what the hell happens.
Right. Yeah. No. When I create, man, like this, people always or sometimes say, "I create for me. I do this for me," and I do too. But once you do this, once you publish it, once you put it on paper, once you get this, you're no longer just doing it for yourself. You're doing it to get it out to the public, right? And so you have to be all in. You have to be committed. That's why I decided, let me finish the book. Let me get to at least the first 40 pages so that people have it in their hands, so they're not waiting around. I've backed, I think like 380 campaigns at this point. I can't tell you how many I've actually received. You know what I'm saying? Because of what you're talking about, Andrew, the non-commitment of the whole thing. You know what I mean? Being all in. I've gotten a lot of these back, and I love a lot of the things that I've gotten, but there are plenty that I haven't. I pledged 2-3 years ago. I still haven't gotten it. I don't know where the project is. I don't know what happened to the creator or whatever. And I don't want that. I don't want people to go through that kind of stuff with the projects that I do. So make sure it's done. You're going to get it. It's already funded. As soon as the money comes in, I'm sending it to get printed, and it's going in the mail. You're getting it as soon as with perks, with things, incentives, things like that, so that you can continue to read my book, because I do want you to read my book. I don't want you to just get a nice cover and hang it up on a wall somewhere and never read it. I want you to read it. I want you to enjoy it,
No, again. I mean, I think it's fascinating, right? Because again, my whole thing is that I'm all in on things in life. I'm very open about what I'm all in on, whether people agree or disagree. I'm a Netflix kid. I'm all in on Netflix. I've been a Netflix stock investor for a very long time, and I'm going to live or die by the sword, for lack of a better word here. And I think it's just fascinating when people go all in and say, I'll drop, 9 to 10 grand on something over the course of building something out, because it's commit. And I'm a strong believer that if you want me to back your project or any project, you better damn be putting money into your project if you want me to put money into your Kickstarter or buy a book from your table. I mean, it's a reasonable expectation. It's a reasonable expectation, because you need to have as much skin in the game as I do. So the fact that I know that you now have a lot more money in it, it's something that I think a backer can say, okay, this person's not going anywhere, and at least they're committed money to it. Because it's easier to beg for money when you have a lot of money in the game too. That's what I've learned.
Because you feel like you have to get that back, right? Like, you've done so much already. You spent so much money, you want to get a lot of that back. And it doesn't stop with a Kickstarter, because I think, to me, I mentioned I was at New York Comic Con this year, and you'd be surprised how many people don't know what Kickstarter is. People go, and every time I ask, because my Kickstarter was running, it started October 7th, and so it was running during Comic Con. And I said, hey, I have a Kickstarter running right now. You familiar with Kickstarter? And they were like, no, I don't know what that is. And I was like, all right, well, I had to explain it to them. And so, yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised when people don't know what Kickstarter is. And so there's that work. You have to put in that additional work to educate people into what this is, and why they should be, backing you or pledging to it, or,
So let's actually talk about that, because I'm curious your opinion. Obviously, I have a mixed feeling on Kickstarter in the last year. So, I mean, I like Kickstarter, but I'm also not thrilled with Kickstarter at the same time. And my rationale is that I feel that they let a bunch of creators create a lot of projects all at the same time, and it seems like it's gonna collapse at some point. But people said, "Oh, you're gonna get your book in May," and I haven't gotten my book yet, and now it's coming in December. That's a big misstep on timing. That's not your book came in July. That's your book came in December, when you said it's going to come in May. But they're running 6 or 7 other projects, and I mean, Luke Stone has his Fund My Indie or Fund My Comic, And I think you can only run 2 active projects, maybe 3 active projects at once. And so I'm very not thrilled with Kickstarter that somebody could run 10 projects or
Yeah.
5 projects all at the same time on Kickstarter, because it almost seems like it's a house of cards to some degree. Because if one thing fails, the whole thing could come falling down and puts me at risk.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's awesome projects on Kickstarter that couldn't get done. Like my Justin Hampton book, which is a bunch of rock and roll posters, couldn't be really done in a traditional sense. So but both those things are happening at the same time. And I also am now really concerned, and it's the thing that I was talking about 5 years ago, where it's pay to play ads. Because a lot of these campaigns that are doing 70, 80, 90, 100,000, they're spending a lot of money on ads. And I'm wondering if that's the new norm and it's almost pay to play. And not to get too controversial, but I'm curious how you view it, because there's only so much money, only so much time, and only so much media consumption that a person can consume.
Yeah.
And so this is where I'm now getting really, really not nervous about Kickstarter, but saying, where's it exactly going? Because a lot of stuff is happening, in my opinion, that I don't know if it's in the right direction.
Yeah, I think back when, obviously 2020, the pandemic hit, and people couldn't go out. Obviously, you couldn't go to your comic book shop, and you couldn't go to a convention anymore. And if you were a comic book fan, where were you going to get your fix? And so Kickstarter thrived in that environment, right? Because the only way to get comics was through things like Kickstarter, maybe eBay or whatever it was, right? But what also happened during that time is that people had a lot of time in their hands, and they decided, I'm going to create my book. Now is the time for me to put my book together and put it out there. And people made a lot of money in that time span on Kickstarter. So everybody thought, oh, this is the way to put comics out now, is through Kickstarter, and do this every 3 or 4 months or whenever you could do it. And some people found a lot of success doing it that way. I always thought that when the world came, if but when the world went back to normal, that conventions would open up again, comic book shops would open up again, and you'd be able to get out the house and go buy your comics. And then there would be a dip in the Kickstarter funding, right? And I think that that's what's happened now at this point. I think people don't just wait around for their comics to come in the mail. They go to conventions. I mean, these conventions are packed. New York Comic Con was packed. San Diego Comic Con was packed. I mean, people are back. They're out. And I think that that's what has affected the Kickstarter game a lot. For me, I think that you shouldn't just live on Kickstarter if you're creating comics. You should use all forms of revenue. If you have a website, make sure you are selling on your website. Go to conventions, get a table. I know it's expensive, but do it. If you have an eBay store, sell on eBay. Like, just find as many ways to get your book out there, and don't just rely on Kickstarter. Because to your point, Andrew, some people are done with Kickstarter. They don't want to deal with that anymore. You know what I mean? And so it can hurt you.
That I'm done. It's that I'm now starting to feel that it's very much, it's, it used to be more organic, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It used to be more not shoved down my throat. Now I go on Facebook and I see, I see 4 or 5 people have the same ads running. We don't need to mention who they are. We all know what ads these are. And they're the same ads on Instagram. And then you look at the book and you're like, this is a average book. You get the book and you're like, man, this was a $20 book and it should have been a $5 book. And the good shit that I could have bought that was organic, that was going to be groundbreaking, I passed on because this was being shoved down my throat because people are running major Facebook ads for average comics. And it almost defeats the purpose of Kickstarter, where the point I thought of Kickstarter, maybe this is just me, and maybe I'm old school, and maybe times have changed, and I'm perfectly fine to admit that, but I thought it was supposed to be that you couldn't do it any other way, and that this was all the cool shit that wasn't going to get picked up by DC Marvel, and it's all like the underground cool stuff. What's the line from Eminem? That stuff that you did with like Scam, the underground stuff, right? In the Real Slim Shady, or shoot, I forget what's the one. Matthew, the starter cap for Matthew. I forget the lyric of the song, but like there's that underground lyric, and that's what I thought Kickstarter was. And that's what I thought it was in 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And now I'm just getting corporate bullshit shoved down my throat with ads, and I can't escape them. I'm like, I'm not interested in Facebook, and then it gives it to me anyway. And I'm not interested in Instagram, and then eventually it's like the good shit doesn't get to the top of the pile, and then I discover it 5-6 years later, and I'm like, fuck, where the fuck's this been?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. I think that does happen. I mean, I think the fact that a lot of these major companies have gone into the Kickstarter game has definitely forced the hand of a lot of consumers to buy the stuff, like you said, that they probably just get at the store in a couple of months because it'll be there, right? And pass up on an indie book that maybe you would have enjoyed because it's done by somebody who has something different to say. Rather than what we're fed all the time. So yeah, no, it is frustrating. I think that, and I think that that's why a lot of us still go on there. Me personally, I like I mentioned before, I won't do like a Kickstarter every 3 months. I can't. I will go into Kickstarter and Kickstarter project, do it for 30 days, see how it does, and then take it from there. Thank you, Kickstarter. Grab whatever I made there, and now continue on my journey to create the rest of the book and put the rest of the book out. And that's not to say that's the right way to do it. That's just the way I do it. You know what I mean? Like, to those who do it every 3 months, great. I mean, if that's the way you feel like that's the only way to be able to collect the funds for it, then you got to do what you got to do. And I don't do what you have to do. For me though, I think it just doesn't. I can't, dude. I can't. I just can't do it.
Let me ask this, because obviously you've seen the Diamond list of how much money Diamond owes people, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you to memorize it. If you did memorize it,
I
good for you.
Yeah,
but you have an idea that
Yeah.
a lot of companies owe to the top 10 companies, give or take. So a lot of them now are stuck because they don't really have their merchandise, or they're now getting back their merchandise, but they don't have a way to distribute it. So they're like, great, we'll just kickstart it and we'll distribute it that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think it's a secret, but Zenescope's in that boat. So they're running a lot of campaigns. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're running a campaign every 3-4 weeks, I mean, it's just economic logic. There's only so much Zenescope I can buy in a 3 or 4 week period without saying I'm tapped out with my paycheck. Like I need time to recover. Like, this is why I think even every 2 months is, pushing it. I think every 3 months is great. But if people, when they're running projects every single month or multiple times a month, I'm like, I'm out of money, and I'm out of money fast. Like, the saying is, you could milk your cow or you could kill your cow. And I think the fastest way, because I can't be the only one who's feeling this right now, is that definitely, and then I say, great, like, I don't want to get in a money trap. And that's why I kind of pulled out this year from Kickstarter, and I have more money because it was just so much and just getting bombarded. And
were you pledging to a lot of campaigns a month?
in 2024, I was probably pledging like 2 or 3 a month.
Really? Wow. That's a lot.
And not small pledges either. I mean,
that's why. That's what I'm saying. That's a lot. Yeah.
Like $40 here per pledge. It's a lot of money. It adds up really quickly. And in some months it's like 6. And I'm just like, I'm out of money, guys. I'm out of money. And this year, I think I backed like 3. And I have a lot more money. And it's not that I don't want to read comics. It's just that, like, it's such an expensive hobby. And then the question also, sorry to cut you off, is that then the books are 5-6 months late. And I'm like, it's not great either. And I'm like, I enjoyed your book, but you were 6 months late. Like, you told me it was coming in May. It came in December. Like that's not an accident. That's yeah. And then I've had books come like 2 years later. I'm like, you had my money for 2 years. You can just so everybody understands before I speak. I mean, I'll run the economic. $100 if you have it for 2 years is not $100, because if I was getting interest on that, it's 104 to 106. If I invested it, it's a lot more than that. And so like that's the problem, is that once you have my money for over an extended period of time, it's not, it's way more than that. If you don't deliver me a book for 2 years, that actually costs me in an economic opportunity anywhere from $50 to $100.
You know, and it sucks because those experiences lead to more people like what you're talking about, Andrew, where like you don't want to now pledge to a new campaign that's coming out because of the bad taste that the other campaigns have left in your mouth for 2 years. You know, so how do you trust that whatever you're going to pledge to now is going to get there? And that leads, you know, at least me, for example, who's running a campaign in the best, because people may be thinking, yeah, man, I don't know. That's why I always like to have the books printed, proof that they're done, they're here. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not gonna have to wait. The only thing you would wait for is the 2 weeks that Kickstarter takes to release the money. And then things can get into the printer and then they're ready to rock and roll, you know?
I mean, look, I'm in a unique situation because I pre-order cards and then I sell them before I have them. But my
Mm.
buyers know that this isn't happening. And then I say to my buyers, if you don't believe me, call up Topps or call Panini and they'll tell you the exact thing that's going on. And then I've had a buyer that I did call Panini and I'm sorry. Like I had a buyer and it wound up calling up and it's like, I didn't believe you, but you were actually right. That it just takes sometimes a while to print things. But there's also a heavy discount when you pre-order it, where there's like a 25% discount. So you could wait and you could pre-order from me and I'll make less money. You'll get a better discount, or you could wait till they're all printed and run the risk that it might be more expensive, but you don't worry about not getting it or having to wait or having your money tied up. And it's all about what people want to do. And then I've had buyers do both, and I understand. And but like that's the arrangement I have on my eBay store, is that because I'm getting a discount, you're waiting, so you're gonna get so if the card would normally sell for 10, I'm gonna sell it to you for 7. So you're
Oh,
saving $3, but my wholesale cost is less than that.
oh,
But
okay.
that's the whole arrangement, is that you're giving up something and I'm giving up something, but everybody's making money in the process.
So
But
so
get
that's
the
worked. That's always worked for you that way.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I mean, wholesale is like $4, so
Oh, right.
it's wonderful. It's awesome. But my buyers like it because it's cheaper for them. And guess what? You're gonna have to wait anyway. So
True.
why wouldn't you want to take the cheaper upside? Great, you're gonna have to wait an extra 5 days longer than if you just waited for them to get into my store anyway. But if you want to, you don't feel comfortable, you could pay the full 10.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right, right.
But a 30% discount for you having to wait and trust, and they still get some eBay protections.
Would you prefer it if, say, for example, something like Kickstarter took the money prior to you know how they wait the 30 days before they actually charge the cards? Would you prefer if the cards were charged like if the money was held in escrow?
This is what I want, right? And I would like to get legislation passed on it, actually, is that I don't have a problem with money being held in escrow or a piece of it held in escrow. I would actually like insurance involved.
Mm,
So I would like books to be insured on non-delivery.
interesting. Yeah, that's good. Good
So
idea.
it's actually doable, because it's a float. It would be like car insurance, right? It's just a
Yeah.
number. And my argument is that because there's no consumer protection on Kickstarter, I'm a big fan of consumer protection. I worked in student loans with veterans, big consumer protection position when I was down in DC in one of my first jobs. And I'm a big proponent of consumer protection. So I would love it if a piece of that was
Yeah.
actually held, and then when tracking was provided, the remainder was released. And I know everybody in Kickstarter is going to hate that concept, but what it would do, and I'm not saying the whole thing, but let's say Kickstarter, takes what do they take, 2 or 3%, or whatever the credit card
It
fee is.
varies, yeah.
So I mean, Kickstarter, what, takes 10%? Is it?
Yeah, well, it varies on the pledge. Like they do it per pledge. Like if it's a $10 pledge, they take this percentage. If it's 25, if it's 35, like depending on the pledge. Yeah, they
Let's say
complicate
they
it.
took
Yeah, just on
1%.
average. So do like just like an average.
So on a 1% position, if they took that and they had to bond it out and insure it, then and then on the off chance Kickstarter would come out ahead, the buyer would be protected because now there would never be a buyer out of money. And it would be timed out, and you as a consumer and as a creator would have to actually give time positions. And let's say there's a snag, you would have to apply to Kickstarter, say, look, here's what's going on. Here's where we're at with this. Printing is delayed by 3 months, right? And then you would have to figure out a workout around with Kickstarter, but your buyer would be insured and protected on their initial pledge. And so I think that would actually be the best thing ever. And potentially I'd want a piece of that as an insurancer because, well, it's my idea and you're damn right I'm going to make a lot of money off of it. But anyway, not because I know how to do it, right? It's basic insurance 101. And I do not work in insurance. I just understand it. But what it would do is that it would make me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that if this thing goes south or is not delivered in a year or a year and a half, I am fully covered on my initial pledge and I get my money back.
Yeah.
Now, I've had about 7 campaigns out of 160 that haven't delivered. It's not a lot of money. It's really not. Actually, that's not true.
Well,
I'd say it's about $500. $500 is a lot of money, but it's not
Yeah.
an ultra amount of lot of money.
Yeah.
But the point is that that's what I would want. But again, I mean, I could outline this whole thing for hours. Anytime anybody, and I think it's a fascinating concept because it would make me feel more comfortable.
Yeah, it's funny because Kickstarter pretty much washes their hands of it. You know? They're like, hey, listen,
may or may not be legal.
Right. They basically say pledge at your own risk. That's what they're saying. You know, like, hey, we don't know if these things are going to get done, but once you hit that pledge button,
eBay provides the buyer and the seller protections. That helps a lot. Now, granted, you can't open up a case for 80 days, give or take, on eBay.
Okay.
So if I put my time for 40 days, you can't say it wasn't delivered if I'm still within my time period to ship it out to you, which makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Then I have another bunch of time where I have another like 2 weeks after those 40 days to cover it. And then, you can open up a case. So I have about 60 days, give or take, to get you your shit on eBay before a buyer can really do something. And sometimes you could say to eBay, hey, look, this just was shipped out from Tops, guys. Here's the thing. Can we figure this out? And sometimes the buyer's like, oh, dude, no worries, man. I'll just remove my case, right? But that's the point, is that I just want some protections because that would make me feel a lot more comfortable. And I'd feel more comfortable to take a risk with a new creator.
True.
If there was insurance on it. And by the way, let's say that the creator fulfills, guess what? That money goes all to the creator minus whatever it is. And there you go. And if they don't, it's insured. And I mean, I don't know what the rate is on this, but it's a solution to a problem. But I digress. I mean, this is a much complicated problem that I don't think anybody in Kickstarter land wants to really talk about because it's going to change the way we do things. But again, different conversation for a different day.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation, man. It really is.
Again, I want people to be protected. I'm a big consumer protector. It's something that because I've been screwed a lot on a lot of things, with purchases. So again, it's something I would like to solve and make the place better and more institutionalized because I think it'll actually bring in more money. But I do want to talk about, obviously, you got some rewards here that I want to mention. You got the cover A thing in there. You got Chris Mad, who was on the show. So I love Chris Mad.
Yeah, Chris is awesome, dude. Chris is awesome.
He's in Jersey, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's in Jersey. Yeah,
he's from Jersey. I know that much.
Yeah.
You got two versions of that. You got the logo and the non-logo.
And the Virgin one. The logo's in the back of the book. So yeah, this is the Virgin cover. Yeah.
And then you got the Shameless tier, which is pretty much anything and everything you want with that. And then you got the pay it forward tier, which is fascinating, which basically is you get one copy and then
two copies. You get 2 copies. So you get these 2 books. So if you pledge to it, you get these 2 books, and then 5 of these books go to the library.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So you get that in there, and then the other thing is that you get your meds tier, which is pretty much everything else that you want.
Everything I have, yeah, everything. The Rust, the Wonder Dog, a T-shirt, a print. Yeah, you get everything that I've created so far.
So yeah, so that's that right there. And so I mean those are like the things, and then there's add-ons and other stuff.
Sure.
If you want something from you and it's not there, I'm sure somebody can reach out and say, hey, do you have this, and this, or I want 15 Wonder Ducks. I'm sure it's very easy to solve those issues.
Oh, yeah.
For anybody who wants anything that you created, I'm sure that something can be arranged, right?
Absolutely. You can reach out to me. You can go to my website, getyourmeds.com. If you aren't comfortable with pledging on Kickstarter and don't want to really mess with Kickstarter, the cover A is available on my website for pre-order. So you can always just go to my website and order it yourself. You don't get the other perks and all the other covers and stuff like that, but you do get the cover A, which a lot of people have taken advantage of. And a lot of people, like I said to you, that were at the convention who didn't know what Kickstarter was, opted to order the book online, and they did. So it worked out.
No, again, it's what people feel comfortable with, because you never ever turn down when somebody wants to give you money. However they want to give you money, you should never turn it down.
Yeah. So find a way to get them what they want.
That's a good lesson too. Is that I would like to pay you, but do you take cash? Absolutely. Do you take cryptocurrency? You got it. Do you take your credit cards? Sure.
Yeah.
Do you take change? Why not? I've never had somebody pay me in like quarters. That'd be funny though. If I ever create a book, I would. If somebody has a sense of humor and they see this, if I have a book and I'm at a con, you should pay me in quarters for the fun. I will find it funny. I will laugh. We will probably videotape it. It'll be great. It'll be the greatest TikTok ever. Paid for in quarters or nickels or pennies. Oh, it'll be brilliant. But anyway, all jokes aside, obviously we got that going on. So yes, there's all that. I think we covered your book. But I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself, because you got a lot of stuff going on. You mentioned it a bunch of times, but I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself, what you got going on, where people can find you, the campaign, making sure a spider's not around. I don't see it. There was a spider on my wall, everybody.
That was funny.
And then I hit it, and then it was still alive, and then I think I killed it, but I don't know. But I don't want it to jump on me, and then me jumping and not looking very manly. So, but continue, please promote yourself.
Yeah, no. For those who are interested in the book, The Shameless Plug, you can always go to my website, getyourmeds.com. There's a link for the book. There's a little behind the scenes story of how I came up with the character and some of the designs, the original designs for the book. So check out the website for that. Go to @get_your_meds on Kickstarter. That's where I do most of my social media posting. I'm also on Facebook, X and all that stuff. But getyourmeds.com is probably going to be the best place to find me. I do have a podcast that I do on Tuesday nights with my buddy Sam Vera called Catch the Craze, where we interview other creators as well. So I will be going on there next, actually, right after this. And check me out there, man. And Andrew, I really appreciate you doing this for me, man. I thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And as a matter of fact, we just got a pledge, and I just unlocked the 3rd stretch goal. So thank you to that backer that we just got. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and then I'm happy to interview people. I was happy to do that. And then obviously I'm going to promote myself because it's my show.
Yeah.
Obviously I am Pop Anime Comics on the Twitter, or the X as it is now called. I also have an Instagram, Pop Anime Comics. I have a Facebook page, Pop Anime Comics. My YouTube channel, please subscribe. It means a lot when people subscribe. It really does help. Is Pop Anime Comics. I got almost 2,000 videos, a lot of micro content, a lot of interviews, a lot of weird interview stuff out there. I've done everybody and everything in the world. You name it, I've done it. And some of the most interesting people and some of the smartest people in the world have been on my show, hands down. So you will. I cannot promise you will get smarter. You will, but I can't completely ensure that. But I will say you will be entertained. You'll be entertained. A lot of really cool stuff and a lot of content's coming out. Really starting in January. So really, really stoked for that. And then my YouTube community page is just a blast. I have a lot of fun there. And then furthermore, obviously, I'm on TikTok, Pop Anime Comics, and then I do run an eBay store. Look for comics and collectibles. Come shop with us on eBay, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles, and I carry stuff like this in my store. I carry comics like this in my store. I carry stuff like this in my store. Stuff like this is in my store. Cards like this are in my store. And then I do carry really expensive stuff like this that sold about 3-4 months ago. It's an expensive autograph card, and I right now have a $1,200 card in my eBay store. That's a good one, guys. And I'm always adding some new stuff in there, but I also sell $4, $5, $6 cards too. So you name it, I sell it. So I go from everywhere from like a $4 item all the way up to $1,200 and then plus. And I get my hands on some really cool stuff. And then the other thing I do that people might be seeing now is I run a separate channel called Big Boy Card Collecting, and I break open a lot of cards and talk about it. And I got some really cool stuff coming. I just not going to really tell anybody what it is, and you all be seeing it, but it's a very cool WWE card. And we're going to be going through some of that stuff, what I pulled this year, because I pulled some really cool stuff from WWE this year that is really cool. So that's everything that I do. Again, if you're looking for cards, comics, go to my eBay store. Links down below. And then if you're looking for something and you don't see it, ask me, because I'm not saying I have it. I might have it. If I do, I'll list it. If I don't have it, I might tell you it doesn't exist, and that's your answer. And if it does exist and I don't have it, chances are I got a lot of friends in the industry, and I have found people books, and I've directed them to where they need to go. So that's everything I got going on. So please shoot me a message there on any of my social medias. And yeah, that's my whole thing. So that's everything I got, and I'm going to give you a chance to, have the final word.
No, like I said, just check out the Kickstarter. I have 48 hours to go. It ends November 6th at 8:15 p.m. So make sure you check that out. Every 10 backers gets a chance to win a free graphic novel with one of these. So make sure you get on there. We just unlocked a third stretch goal, which is a secret page in the book. I'm very excited about that. And if we get to 4,000 within the next 2 days, I'll figure out what else to give away. But Andrew, you're my man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, brother. I'm going to dip out now, go on to the next show. But
I believe that is a wrap, everybody. That is a wrap.